Hi friends, welcome to my channel. What am I doing today? Today I am doing this is not the painting portion, this is just the information process to the review for El Mes de la Gouache, the month of gouache. I have here, we're looking at I think we should be looking at the Rowney today. Gouache. As you can see, it's already been squeezed, so I've already had some use of this gouache, and yeah, we'll be looking at the Rowney today. Okay, so I got my Rowney set in a previous scroller box, which I might add I did not do the challenge for. Sorry, but I got them there. It came with 6 colors, and the 6 colors that was given to us is cadmium yellow deep hue, I believe this is alizarin crimson hue, a cobalt blue hue, a portrait pink, an ivory black, and a titanium white. So these were the colors that came in that set. Okay, it also came with a pencil, a cool natural eraser, and a Royal Talents series 191 traveling brush. And I've just basically have this in my art studio, and I've never really played with it. I think I just used it a couple times, especially the white, but I've never really played with it. And so for El Mes de la Gouache, I really want to check out the full scopes of these Rowney. So the Rowney Aquafine Gouache, these are made from carefully selected high-grade pigment, rich pigmentation, and even washes. It has a full range of 30 in the entire, full color range of 30. Now the titanium white is actually a PW6. Light fastness is 3. The ivory black is a PBK7, light fastness is 3, and the way they rate light fastness is from 1 being the poorest to 4 being the most excellent. Portrait pink also has a light fastness rating of 3, and portrait pink, I believe, is a combination of PW6, PY42, and a PR101. The cobalt blue, which also has a light fast rating of 3, is a combination pigment of PB29 and a PW6. The alizarin crimson hue also have a light fast rating of 3 and has a combination of PR176 and a PW6. And the cadmium yellow deep hue also has a light fast rating of 3, and this combination is a PY3, a PW6, and a PY65. Okay, so the way I am going to be categorizing gouaches for this El Mes de la Gouache, the month of gouache, is I'll be categorizing them in 4 different categories, or well, actually 3 different categories. I'll be categorizing them as for children. I'll be categorizing them as designer gouache, and I'll also be categorizing them for designer gouache, and also categorize them as high-grade non-designer gouache. And high-grade non-designer gouache are those gouaches that do not add chalk or a PW6 to their mixture, like the Schminke Horadam gouache. That is a high-grade non-designer gouache because it's pure pigment with binder. I believe M Gram is also one of those high-grade non-designer gouache because that is also pigment and binder, which I know about 3. And Daniel Smith just brought out a gouache line, and from what I have read and from YouTube seminars that I have seen, their gouache line is yet just pigment and binder. And for other gouaches like Winsor Newton, Rowney, Schminke has a designer gouache line, Schminke, and even Holbein, because even though Holbein calls itself Holbein Artist Gouache, and a lot of people put them as a higher than the Winsor Newton, when I went onto the Holbein website to do research on the Holbein gouache, they listed their gouache as designer gouache. So I don't know if it's an error that they made on their website, or really and truly their gouache is actually designer gouache. So for that reason, I am not listing them in my high grade non-designer gouache. And you know, so I'm not going to say student line, I'm just going to say designer gouache. So these are basically designer gouache. And if you want to know the difference between designer gouache and high grade non-designer gouache, what they called artist gouache, check out my introductory video. I actually talked about the difference between designer gouache and artist gouache, but I'm just going to say high grade non-designer gouache. What I did in this little plastic here is I put some of the paints to dry, and as you can see, you're seeing movements in it. So I'm going to take off this plastic film that I have here so that, you know, I could tear down on the sheen, and we're going to talk about what's going on here. Okay, so what had happened here is that I put some of the gouache that I have to dry, just to see if you put them in a pan if they can re-wet. And the gouache that I tried those with in this particular pan is the one I'm trying to sort out, is actually the Winsor and Newton. I was able to get some colors from them, and as you can see, they're, after they dried out, they just, you know, came apart literally. So they're all over the place. So I'm trying to put them back. The one that did not move is the 6 Rowneys that I have here. They actually still seem a bit tacky. Look at that. It's completely dry, but it looks very wet. So I'm thinking you can pan these and feel completely at ease. But these Winsor & Newton, I don't think you can pan these at all. Except for the, I have from Winsor & Newton only 6 colors and 2 whites. So we'll be looking at that at another time. As you can see, this one is not moving at all. Yeah, this one doesn't move as much, but it can move. This one doesn't move. And these are the 2 whites. But we'll be looking here at the Della Rowney ones. And they haven't moved at all. Just need to take that little piece that is next to, that's a Winsor & Newton piece, yeah. So we'll be seeing how these re-wet from dried. Now I have these drying for about before I covered them with the plastic wrap, I had them drying for about a week and a half, about 8 or 9 days I had them drying for. And then when I thought, you know, 8 or 9 days is good enough, then I wrapped them with the plastic wrap so, you know, no dust or anything get on them, to kind of protect them. So I made sure they dried. They had at least a week to dry, and then I wrapped them with plastic wrap. So we're going to be testing that too in this video. Okay, so I have my swatch booklet here, and I'm just going to first go with cadmium yellow, deep hue. Okay, and I'm gonna put a 3 here because it says its light fastness is 3. That's what it says. It's made from 3 pigment, a PY3, a PY65, and a PW6. Then we're gonna put the other one. So I'm gonna finish this up off camera and come back to you. Okay, so I'm gonna do one swatch that is straight from the tube, and then I'm gonna do a second swatch of the re-wetting, so that's straight from the tube. This is cadmium yellow. I have my Zen Art number 10 brush here. Let's see what we're working with. You guys got, this is like one of the first times I swatch it out. I'm just gonna put it about here, yeah. Okay, let's pull out some colors. Okay, we're gonna give this time a little time to dry. Maybe I put down a little too much paint. Next, we're going with the alizarin crimson. Just a little dot. Nothing too major. Normally what I do when I have tubes and I squeeze them out, I kind of squeeze it the opposite way to kind of pull back some of that content back into the tube, so that the next time I open the tube, it doesn't explode on me. That's my little trick. Let's put some water in my brush. And this is, the top one is straight from the tube. Okay, let's wash off the brush a bit and then pull this out. The paper that I'm swatching on is actually from Derwent Academy. This is the Derwent Academy watercolor paper. I know, right? This is paper that I once found right here in the country of Belize. I like to swatch my colors out on paper that I can find here in Belize, just because, you know, not everybody could afford high-grade paper. So, you know, you don't want to be able to say, oh, you have to, and I know the paper does make a difference, but when you live in a third world country, you have to use what is available. So I have a little bit of water in my brush. Maybe that was a little too much. But yeah. Wash out my brush, dab it off. Put a little bit of water in it and then just pull that out. How are we looking so far? I want to give this time to dry a bit because I don't want it to be, because after here at the bottom I'm gonna put in the swatches that I have drying. Next color is I have this little brush holder I made from some clay that I found here in my country. This is a little brush holder. I made it, you know, so that when I put my brush on my desk, I could keep the wet part off my desk. Portrait pink. See, and then I just kind of pull that back in a bit. Okay, let's see what portrait pink looks like. I'm expecting this to be a bit opaque because, you know, it's made from two highly opaque colors, PW6 and PR101. Which are really opaque. Okay. Titanium white. Ooh, what is that? That doesn't look like titanium white. That looks like clear stuff. 1 minute, please. Sorry, that was not titanium white. What we're seeing here is bubble and binder. So we gotta kind of like suck up some of this binder first. I know, right? Okay, there's the paint coming out finally. So when you get a paint with binder, it's important for you to kind of suck up some of that binder first. It's still giving me binder rather than paint. There is the paint finally coming out. Oh gosh, there's the paint finally coming out. It has so much binder. Wow. So let's see what titanium white looks like. Not sure if I'm... Okay, now we're working with something. Okay, wash off my brush, and then we're gonna see how it pulls out with water. Luckily, this watercolor paper is not exactly white. It's kind of like an eggshell color, so you can see white on it. This is ivory black. We're working at binders too. Doesn't look like we are. So I'm gonna leave this for a few minutes to let it dry. And then I'm gonna come back and see if the ones that I had drying for 9 days can re-wet again. They look like you can pan them. So we're gonna check all that out. I know that you can buy these open stock from Dick Blick, and I haven't seen them sold open stock on Jackson's online, but I've definitely seen them open stock on more American online retailers like Dick Blick. I think I've seen them also on Jerry's Autorama. So yeah, so you can get these open stock. So if there's colors, let's say I used up all my white and I love the Rowney titanium white, I could buy this tube again. So they are sold open stock. Okay, so I am going to leave this to let this dry completely. I'll probably give it about an hour to see if it's gonna dry completely. And then when I come back, I'm gonna be swatching these ones here to see if these can be re-wet. As you can see, they do look nice and glossy, like you can pan them. They're unlike the Winsor & Newton, they're not moving about. So we can see if this can re-wet again. Okay, and then we're going to talk about the opacity of these watercolors and an interesting little fact that I just read on this tube. Okay, so for me it was an hour and a half. For you it was 1 second, less than a second. That's the next take. And now I will be re-wetting the ones that I have left dried for about... This has been left dried, like open, for about 9 days, and then I put the plastic wrap over it, and I had it stored for about 3 weeks. So it's not sure if any air caught it while it was in plastic wrap, but it was left. As you can see, everything is just completely dry. So now we're gonna see if I could re-wet any of them. I'm just gonna go straight in there without any drops or anything. I'm not gonna do anything yet. I'm gonna show you first. Let's see. Oh my god, you can definitely get color from it. As you can see, look at that. There's color coming out. So let's see if this color that's coming out of this is different than this color that came straight from the tube. Okay, I'm just gonna wash out that and then pull out some color. Okay, it doesn't seem to be as opaque when you pull color out from it. Let me see if I could bring you guys out to give you a great angle. Okay, so I'm in the corner now. I'm doing the alizarin crimson hue. And as you can see, you can totally pan these. Literally, guys, you can actually pan these. Let me see if it's a bit different. Oh my gosh, I think I'm gonna pan these. At least pan some of them, because look at how beautiful that is. But as you can see, it loses some of that opacity that it has. It completely does lose some of that opacity. But it is gorgeous. I don't know, I don't like how this re-wets. It's like it's re-wetting in segments. And that's what I'm getting. It's like it re-wets in segments. I don't know. Let's check out the portrait pink. I want to do this in real time to let you guys see what's going on, because this is important. You can actually pan gouache. You can actually pan gouache, and some artists do pan them. And I was thinking of panning gouache, but then again, there are artists that, other gouache artists I should say, that recommend you don't pan gouache and you work directly from the tube. And I just want to see the difference. And with this swatch, I can so see the difference. Would you look at that? That is gorgeous. I will give you guys a full-on view of this when I'm done with the swatching. I really like this brush, and you can see that the 6 colors that I have are all re-wetting beautifully. None of them seemed hard or given trouble to re-wet. Maybe the whites a bit. It didn't came off as easy. You can see I have to work a little harder on the white. Let's see how that works out. Okay. What I'm actually noticing, you do lose that opacity when you wet it. That's what I'm noticing. Like they're just a tad bit less opaque, but not to the extent that it's opaque. Except for the cobalt blue hue, it lost a lot of the opacity. But all others is like, you know, maybe about 10%. But that cobalt blue hue, there was a significant amount of opacity that was lost. Just need to be careful with this now. Put that aside for it to go back to drying again. And I'm gonna wet it a bit. Okay, so while the second part is drying, I want you guys to see what I was looking at. And let me grab a pointer tool. Okay, pointer tool. As you can see, especially here, you can definitely see that a lot of the opacity has been lost. Look at that. Just here. But this one, not so much, you know, it seemed to be consistent. This one could be user error because it was the first, but it did lose a lot of the opacity straight from tube. Look at the white. See, the white did lose some opacity. The black is still drying, but yeah. And here you saw that some of the opacity has been lost. So it seems that when I get them, dry them out in tubes, dry them out in pans and use them that way, I will lose some of that opacity. And if it's the opacity that I want, then I'll have to work with these straight from tubes. Okay, so I'm gonna take these off to the side. Let me see if I can push all of them here in view. I'm gonna take these off. Yeah, there you go. I'm gonna take these off to the side and I'm gonna be working with these. From the little that I did work with them before, I think I did do like maybe 1 or 2 pieces of them. From the little that I did work with them, I can tell you that they are staining, especially this crimson hue here, very, very staining, and the cadmium yellow hue is also very, very staining, and it's very staining. I can tell you that it has its opacity, but as you can see, when it's dried out, it loses that opacity, and they're made from pigments. These are not made from dyes, and you know, because it has the pigment code right there on it, PBK. One of the things I said that was found interesting is that here it labels it as opaque watercolor right underneath the name that says Aquafine Gouache. It says opaque watercolor, and it's kind of confusing to me because even though a lot of people call gouache opaque watercolor on its own is completely different from gouache. And we're going to talk about all that because when I did the research for the month of the gouache, I found that out, that opaque watercolor is actually different from gouache. It is made different from gouache, and we need to explore that, because if they're calling gouache opaque watercolor, then what is truly opaque watercolor? That's an interesting question. But if you know the answer to that question, please let me know in the comments below. I will love to see the discussion about that question. And guys, thank you so much for joining me on this journey. I'm going to take these away. I'm going to work with them some, and then I'm going to bring you a full illustrated portion of this review with these. And as always, guys, stay safe. Stay blessed, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.